Welcome to the Gut 360 podcast. I'm your host, Eli Brecher, a registered associate nutritionist on a mission to empower you to transform the health of your mind, body, and gut. This podcast is the place where we share nutrition tips, mindset tools, and actionable steps to help you thrive on your journey to a healthier gut and a happier you. If you're ready to get into the driver's seat of your own health and unlock your full potential, you're in the right place, and I am so glad you're here. Hello, and welcome back to the Gut 360 podcast for your Monday morning gut health inspiration. Today, we're talking all about balancing gut health in a busy life with a truly amazing guest. We have Sophie Bertrand, who I'm just about to introduce. So pop the kettle on and make yourself a cup of tea or a matcha latte, my personal favorite, or head out for your morning walk while you listen to this episode. Before we get started, as you guys know, we have an opening tradition on the podcast, which is the food of the week and my favorite way to use it. So my food of the week this week is blueberries. Blueberries are coming towards the end of their season soon as we move into autumn, but you can still get them seasonally for a few more weeks. They may be small, but they are nutritional powerhouses, and they're also my all-time favorite fruit. Low in calories, high in fiber, vitamin C, and vitamin K. They're packed with antioxidants, which are linked with better brain function and improved memory, and they're particularly rich in polyphenols, which are these plant compounds that our gut microbiome thrives off. My favorite way to use blueberries is in a smoothie bowl, and I actually have a delicious recipe for a banana and blueberry smoothie bowl on my website, elibrecher.co.uk, which is linked in the show notes below if you want to give it a try. Now let's get into today's episode on balancing gut health in a busy life with Sophie Bertrand, who's a registered nutritionist, founder of Sophie's Healthy Kitchen, co-host of the Forking Wellness podcast, and co-author of nutrition book Forking Wellness. Her non-diet approach to nutrition has seen her work with individuals to develop a healthy relationship with food, as well as specializing in pre- and postnatal and family nutrition. Sophie shares information around evidence-based well-being and delicious, nutritious recipes on her Instagram too. Welcome, Sophie, to the Gut 360 podcast.
Hi, Ellie. I'm so happy to be sat here chatting with you.
Such a pleasure to have you on today. So can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, your journey with nutrition, and how you got to where you are today?
I will try and sum it up as quickly as I can. So basically, I had like the most unhealthy relationship with food growing up. And I feel like it's so different to other people who have unhealthy relationships with food because I just so wasn't bothered about food. It never like interested me. I didn't really like it. My mum she used to find it so hard to get me to eat anything, not because it was like anything to do with body image. I just did not have that much interest in food. So when I actually developed an eating disorder in my early teens, I don't want to get my wording wrong here or like trigger anyone, but I didn't find it overly distressing to cut foods out of my diet because I didn't eat that much food anyway. Like I didn't really like food. So I felt like it was arguably quite easy to maintain an eating disorder because I just had no sort of, desire to eat food. But so yeah, I was treated for my eating disorder as an inpatient when I was around 18, I think. And it really kind of left me with like, what am I going to do with my life? I felt like I wasn't really passionate about anything, but having gone through what I went through, I was like, I'm actually really interested in the psychology of the brain and why this has kind of happened and why I felt the need to take it this far. I've had like this huge perfectionist personality as well. So I feel like that kind of played into it. Yeah. So I pursued psychology. I came out and did my psychology degree, which I literally loved. Like I felt like I put all my energy that I was putting into an eating disorder into actually like learning something, and I started to try more foods and I started to actually enjoy food. And I was like, oh my God, it actually makes me feel really good when I'm eating well. So yeah, I did my psychology degree, came out and was like, oh my God, I've just done like 4 years of studying. That was a lot. And all my teachers were like, well, what are you going to do your master's in? I was like, oh gosh, like I don't even think I can do a master's at this point. Like that was very intense. So I went traveling to the West Coast of America with my sister and we were out there for 4 months. And I feel like I 90% healed my relationship with food out there. It just like took me out of what I knew. Again, trying new foods, like realizing how amazing my body could feel when I was fueling it properly. And it was the first time I just felt so happy and content with myself. And I was like, this is all because like I'm eating well. So that's where I kind of came back and I was like, I really think I want to be a nutritionist and go into the field of nutrition and marry together like my knowledge of psychology and learn about nutrition. And I'm not going to lie, I wanted to do the shortcut because I was like, I've just been studying for 4 years. I don't know if I can face any more further education. But I was like, no, I'm going to put my all into this and do it properly. So I studied at UCL and got my qualifications and registered with the AFN, who, as you know, are the governing body in the UK for registered nutritionists. Started practicing with clients, but then also started consulting for businesses and food brands and different companies. And I really loved that. So I slowly kind of stopped working with clients because I loved working with different teams of people. And I'm sure, as you know, it's quite intense working with clients week to week. And then just to fast forward a little bit, I got pregnant and fell massively interested into pre and postnatal nutrition. So I did that for a little while and focused my energy there. And since having my second baby, I found it a lot running my own business and doing all sorts of things, because I'm sure, as you know, no one day or week is the same. It can be quite chaotic, and I'm a very routine person. And when I was doing it on my own, I could set my own routine. I had flexibility. There was nothing else I had to consider. But when you throw 2 babies in the mix and you're trying to fight to get into a routine, it's near impossible. So for my own sanity, I decided I still kind of have my business stuff on the side, but it's very much on the side now. And I'm actually working, it's a contract role at the moment, kind of not fell into my lap. I was kind of openly thinking about looking for other work, but this opportunity presented itself to me. And I was like, I'm going to do it. It gives me routine back in my life. I know how much I'm making each month versus how much I need to spend on childcare each month, because that is a whole other conversation. And I'm really, really enjoying it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like you've been on such an empowering journey from your eating disorder. And honestly, thank you for opening up to all of us about that, because I know there's obviously such a huge link between psychology and nutrition. And I think it's amazing how you did manage to marry those two together. I can completely relate to wanting to find a shortcut when going into nutrition as your second degree. I shopped around, and then in the end I was like, I'm just going to do a 4-year Bachelor of Science again, and end up doing 8 years at uni and the science foundation that I had to do to get onto that. But it was so worth it, right? You know, being registered nutritionist in the end with the AFN, look at how far you've come now. It's just such an amazing journey. So thank you, Sophie. Now, one thing you said was you realize how amazing you feel when you actually start fueling yourself properly. And I think this is something that so many people struggle with. I know I also struggled with that myself. Like, I didn't realize I was actually at rock bottom with my gut health issues. I've got Crohn's, as you know, until I started to actually get myself in remission by looking after myself. And it's so incredible how much better you can feel when you do fuel yourself physically, mentally, nourish yourself with the right foods, the right lifestyle, manage stress and all of that. So I wanted to start by asking you, when you notice that your health is kind of starting to fall short, when you're super busy, obviously you're a super mom, you've got 2 gorgeous babies. What are the first signs that you notice, and what do you start to do about that?
So do you know what? My youngest is literally turning 1 in 2 days. But when in the first 6 months of his life, so I never got ill, like ever. I swear, like I have, touch wood, such a strong immune system. And I'm kind of the same as my dad in that sense. Like my mom, my sister always catch everything, but me and my dad never catch anything. And in the first 6 months of my little one's life, I had 4 sickness bugs. I was like, what is going on? And it actually started to scare me, because I was like, this is just my body telling me, like, you are so run down that you are just so susceptible to like any bug or bacteria that's coming into contact with you. So I was run down because I wasn't sleeping. I'd gone back to work. For the first kind of few months, I didn't take maternity until he was around 4 or 5 months old, because I was trying to still run my own business, do all this work, bring in money from kind of like, I think he was a week old when I shot my first brand campaign again. And then when I got to Christmas, I was like, okay, I've been ill like 2 or 3 times. I actually should take a break. And because I was kind of open to looking for more work, I was like, I feel like I'm just going to kind of dwindle this business out, let it take a backseat at the moment and just try and focus on my health. And that really helped. But then I went back to work end of January and he was 6 months old. And then I just got ill again, because I was like up at 4 trying to get everything done. I was trying to work out every day. I was trying to look after the kids. I was literally doing it on no sleep. I have a dog as well. Like, there was just so much going on, and I just like kept feeling run down. So I just stripped everything back. I stopped. I think I took like a week off of exercising completely. And then when I went back to it, it was very much low impact. I stopped because when I was getting up in the morning, I was trying to hype myself up, like ready to go. And then I was doing like a HIIT workout, and like it was all just like adrenaline and cortisol, and it was too much. So I just had to be like, I have this extremely driven personality as well, where I feel the need to always be doing something. That's just like my body and my brain. So I really, I started meditating. I think we've spoken about this before, really. Like, I hate meditating. And I was like, I'm just going to try it. Like, I committed to 21 days to it.
How did you get into it? Because I talk about it a lot, and so many people say, oh, I just can't meditate. Like, my mind is always go, go, go. And I relate to that as well. I'm very driven. I always am looking for what's the next thing I can do? What's the next thing? So how did you get into it? And how did you kind of just clear your mind and allow it to flow?
So I told myself I was going to do it for 21 days. I was like, I'm going to do it. Because so often I've tried to do it and I was like, this is a waste of my time. And I get up and I stop. But I was like, I'm going to do it. And I committed to 5 minutes, which for me is a really long time to meditate. But I'm sure for the average meditator, that's no time at all. I was like, you've got 5 minutes a day you can do this for. So I actually use the app Clementine. I don't know if you've heard of it. I guess it's kind of like mini therapy bites, because it's literally like this woman coaching you. She gets you to like repeat after her in your head as well. So you can really be present in the moment, focus on your breath. And you know it's only 5 minutes. So you know you haven't got long to just try and sit there and do that for that amount of time. And it kind of just like, again, depending on what you choose, it's like learning to relax or learning to not take everything so seriously, or you're in charge of your day, you're in charge of your mind. So yeah, that's how I did it.
That's amazing, honestly. And now, is it something that you incorporate into your day every day as a kind of non-negotiable, or is it here and there whenever you're able to?
Something I do is I focus on my breathing. That's my form of meditation. I just really, even if it's just for a minute or so in the morning, I really focus on like my breath. And then again, when I do my walk with my dog, I really focus on my breathing. I'm very into like nose breathing, and it sounds so silly, but every time I used to go on a walk, I'd always just walk with my mouth open. And now I'm very conscious again with my exercise as well. I always breathe with my mouth closed. And meditation, yeah. So I go back to it. If I feel like I'm really stressed and I need to bring myself back down, I'm like, you need to sit and do a 5-minute meditation, not a workout this morning.
It's so important to listen to our body, isn't it? I feel like a lot of people, when they're up and their mind is worrying, they're like, well, I'm just going to, get the energy out by going for a run or doing a HIIT workout. But sometimes the best thing we can do is just sit still and meditate or breathe.
So true.
Yeah, just make a cup of tea and sit there mindfully if we can't even bring ourselves to meditate.
Yeah, and just let yourself do nothing, because I'm so bad at that. But my husband actually booked me a massage a few nights ago. It was the first time in I cannot remember how long that I sat there and wasn't thinking, what am I doing tomorrow? What's my to-do list? What food do I need to prep this week? What are my kids going to do tomorrow? Like, it was the first time I lay there and I was like, I'm not going to think about anything. I'm just going to lie here and get a massage. It was so weird.
The dream. You absolutely deserve it. I think I need to book one for myself too.
do.
And just rewinding a little bit, when you were saying that you were getting ill really frequently after your first son was born, from a nutrition standpoint, is there anything in particular that you were doing to kind of help mitigate that? I mean, obviously, I talk about gut health a lot. 70% of our immune system is located in the gut. So any particular nutritional practices or nutrients that you were kind of incorporating into your diet to try to combat that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of controversy around supplements, but I actually think a lot of us should be supplementing, because we are just not living in a world where we're getting everything we need, unfortunately. And if we have the time and the money to really focus on getting every single thing we need from our diet, then great, like, good for you. But I'm a busy mum of 2. It wasn't in the forefront of my mind to be eating 3 well-balanced meals a day. So I was still taking my pregnancy supplements because I'm breastfeeding as well. So I was always taking those supplements. I also started taking probiotics, which again, not everyone needs, but in the state that I was in, I felt like it was a good insurance. Really focusing on protein and healthy fats, I think, is just so key. Like, they're such powerful macronutrients that we need to be including in our diet. And because I was eating a lot of sugar as well, like, that was just my go-to. Like I said, I was breastfeeding around the clock, so like my body really did need it. But I was also trying desperately to make sure that I was also getting enough protein and essential fats.
Amazing. All of those are super important. Do you have any, I mean, I know you always share delicious recipes on Instagram. I look at your page and I'm like, it just makes me hungry looking at all your amazing treats. But any particular recipes that you recommend as a busy mum, or maybe even not a mum, just someone with a really hectic life who maybe doesn't love cooking and doesn't want to spend hours in the kitchen? What are your go-tos for breakfast, lunch and dinner?
Oh, my go-tos. So I love doing overnight oats. That was like, especially if I was going into the office, I would always prep overnight oats for me and the kids the night before. I think that's such a good go-to. I've been loving eggs recently, which is so weird because I'm such a sweet girl for breakfast. But starting my day with eggs and vegetables, I'm like, this feels so good. I did that this morning. And then I normally have like a mid-morning sweet snack because I'm like craving something sweet already. And then for like the main meals, I always have microwavable grains in the cupboard. I just think they're such a great staple. You don't have to waste time cooking them. You literally
Any grains in particular?
I like to go for the mixed ones. So quinoa, freekeh, lentils. You could actually, I mean, I do love the merchant gourmet ones, but the branded supermarket ones are like usually half the price and just as good. And like mixed wild rice, things like that. Love those. And then tinned foods as well, like good to go black beans, kidney beans, and then mix them with tinned tomatoes and spices. It sounds so random, but you're literally getting in loads of different plant foods. And it takes no time at all. You've literally got to pour tins into like a saucepan and heat it up together and it's good to go. And you can batch cook and, you know, meal prep and keep them in lunchboxes. And I do that for my kids as well.
That's amazing. It's ideal. I'm obsessed with tin foods as well. I think people are surprised to hear that nutritionists who love cooking and baking actually just eat foods from a tin a lot of the time. But
yes,
cooking, you know, high quality beans. I love tinned fish, you know, like the omega-3 rich oily fish, tin mackerel. I've even got into things like sardines. Tin salmon is great. Also the non-oily fish, tin tuna, whatever. If you can add it to some tinned tomatoes and stir that into pasta, brown rice pasta or lentil pasta, if you want more, you know, high fiber, you've got a complete balanced meal in under 10 minutes.
Exactly.
Amazing. So on the Gut 360 podcast, we always take a 360-degree approach to gut health because, as you know, of course, nutrition is just one piece of the puzzle and it's about so much more than just the food we eat. So I'd love it if you could talk to us a bit about the links between sleep and our health. Do you notice lack of sleep impacting your gut in particular and also other areas of your health, productivity, your life?
100%. Do you know what? The last 2 nights I've actually had sleep. And the first night I was like, God, that was great. But from like waking up this morning, I genuinely feel like a different person. I feel like I'm living in the world everyone else has been living in, those people who actually have sleep in their life. Because since my son was born, I just have not had proper consistent sleep in my life. And I'm not joking. My stomach feels completely different today. You're actually talking to me on such a good day because I can tell you this and share it with people. But it's just so amazing to feel well. And I truly believe that sleep is arguably the most important foundation to our health. It's when everything resets itself. Our body clears out toxins. That's like the body and the brain. It rejuvenates itself. It restarts, refreshes, like everything. And if you're not getting those hours in, like it's all a cycle as well. Like it needs time to do that. You're not going to get everything you need in 1 hour of sleep. Like you need like the good 7 to 9 hours. I've actually just started taking a new probiotic in the morning as well. So I don't know if that's got anything to do with it. But yeah, I suffer from like more cramping and digestive discomfort and bloating. And sleep massively affects my digestion, to sum it up. It also affects my like ability to focus and concentrate. I find that so difficult. And I hate when like I've had a few corporate talks in the last 6 months and I've always said to my husband, like, I have to have sleep on those nights because I can't think properly. Like it's embarrassing. I can't talk. Sleep is everything, basically.
I'm exactly the same. I need my sleep. When I don't get enough sleep or enough high quality sleep, I brain fog all over the place. And I get so hungry. My hunger hormones are through the roof. I mean, obviously
there's so frustrating.
Yeah. And we know there's this direct correlation between our ghrelin, our hunger hormone being higher when we're sleep deprived, and then our leptin, our fullness hormone being lower. So our brain isn't sending signals to our gut, or our gut isn't sending signals to our brain telling us that we're satiated, we can stop eating now. So yeah, there's such a big link there. It's insane. I'm curious, do you do any sleep tracking? Do you wear an Oura ring or anything like that?
I don't, because I feel like it would just depress me. It's so interesting because I work in health tech, so I'm kind of like, I think about this stuff a lot. And all an Oura Ring does is gives you data. It doesn't give you any coaching or like anything you can do about it. It just shows you what's happening. And I would just find that so unhelpful because I know that I'm not getting enough sleep. So I don't need an Oura Ring being like, oh, here's how poorly you slept last night. I think it's a great concept. And I know a lot of people who get on really well with it, but it's not for me.
I'm flashing mine at the camera for anyone who's watching on YouTube now. No, do you know what? I totally agree with you. It is just data. It's not a treatment. It's not a mechanism that's going to actually improve your sleep. But for me, I find it motivates me to get into bed earlier because I want to get 10 out of 10, I don't have two little kids like you do, but it motivates me to get into bed and to be really conscious of kind of sleep hygiene and having a nice wind down routine if I can. I always notice the nights that I have a bath with Epsom salts, magnesium bath salts, I sleep so much better. It's crazy because we absorb magnesium through our skin. It makes a real difference.
That's so interesting that you actually feel the effects though. I always recommend my clients to do that, but I haven't really done it since I've had kids because I have this thing, and I think other mums will like resonate with this. You never want to send yourself into too much of a deep sleep in case they need you in the night.
Yes, that makes total sense. No, it really does. I guess there's other benefits. A lot of people use Oura Rings for cycle tracking and things, which can be really helpful. Yeah. But I completely understand that relationship with, too much health tech, too much tracking, it can get a bit overwhelming. So I'd love to pivot a little bit and ask you about some practices that you were doing during your pregnancy. So nutrition and lifestyle as well. Firstly, was it different throughout the first time and the second time when you already had a toddler running around? And secondly, just kind of any advice that you have nutritionally and lifestyle 360 approach.
Love this question. So with my first pregnancy, I've actually had two really amazing pregnancies. I had like no complications. I didn't really suffer with anything that people typically associate negatively with pregnancy. So with my first, I was like all excited. I obviously had no one else to worry about. I ate really well, apart from in my first trimester because I was so ill. I exercised like 3-4 times a week. My birth was okay. It was a good, successful first time birth. Like I didn't have any like intervention or anything like that, but it was a tiny bit traumatizing. Like it was that typical thing that you see on TV where like you're pushing and screaming and the doctors are like, come on, like push, get it out. So that was quite overwhelming and probably the most pain I've ever been in my life. But I feel like I learned from the first pregnancy. And when I felt pregnant again, I was like, they say labor is like a marathon. So I was like, I'm going to freaking train my ass off and do this right this time. I'm not going to have people screaming at me. I'm going to go in and know exactly what I'm doing. I'm not going to need to place my trust in someone else. So I ate incredibly. I took all my supplements from very early on. I had my little boy, Romeo, keeping me very busy, but he was kind of like my little best friend. So like, it wasn't like, oh, like I've got a toddler and I'm pregnant as well. This is so tiring. I was just like, I was enjoying it. But I did completely different workouts. I worked out probably 5-6 times a week, which some might argue is too much, but it wasn't like high intensity. It was like Pilates, training my pelvic floor, that type of like slower pace workout. And then I probably do half an hour to an hour walk every day. And I literally had the best birth. It was so easy. I would say that dislocating my knee was more painful than my second birth. Like it was just the most incredible experience. I had him in 2 hours in the bath. Yes, it was painful, but I feel like I completely managed it. I did not even know where my midwife was because she just like wasn't even that involved in the birth. It was just me and my husband doing it. And my recovery was incredible as well. Whereas my recovery with Romeo, I felt so broken for so long. And with Hudson, I feel like I was just like a week in and I almost felt back to normal.
Wow, that's honestly unbelievable. And I'm so happy for you that you had such a beautiful experience, especially the second time round. It sounds like every woman's dream. So that's amazing. And I think it really pays off that you were exercising throughout your pregnancy, obviously safely. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing to see the difference when you go into it with that mindset as well. So you talk about recovery. That brings me nicely onto my next question, which is I wanted to ask you about some of your tips for supporting the body postpartum. So after you've given birth, are there any particular nutrients that women should be prioritizing? Does birth deplete us of any vitamins, minerals? What would you advise in general?
For sure. It will depend on if you're breastfeeding, but even if you're not breastfeeding, like obviously becoming a new mum and having a baby to live after 24/7 is very, very tiring. So I would really recommend that you continue to take your prenatal supplements postpartum for longer if you're breastfeeding still. I would, as long as you're breastfeeding, still take supplements, because it is such a job breastfeeding, particularly in like the first 6 to 9 months, depending on your baby. But depending on your birth, your iron might be low. Like, so if you lost a lot of blood in your labor or your birthing experience, then your iron levels may be low. If you did have quite a traumatic birth, I would actually recommend getting your bloods tested. But so yeah, iron, choline is an important one, iodine, B12, vitamin D. Again, I would just recommend taking a postpartum supplement, but do make sure there's choline in it, because a lot of pregnancy supplements do not contain this nutrient, which just baffles me because it's so important. And focus on essential fats as well. So really getting enough fats in your diet is so important for our hormonal balance as women, and protein as well. Like, you just need to be fueled up, because even if you feel like you're not doing that much in like your like 6 weeks postpartum, your body is still like, first of all, it's been through a trauma because it's just birthed a baby. Secondly, if you're breastfeeding, you can burn around 500 calories a day, which is huge. So you need to make sure you're keeping energy levels up. And it is bloody exhausting recovering from a birth, depending again on what sort of birth you had, and also looking after a baby 24/7. There's literally no let up, and you'll never know what you're in for. You think you do, because I did, but no one can explain how exhausting it is learning to be a mum and being a mum until you get there. So just making sure you've got as much nutrition in your diet as possible, because also, like, when we're sleep deprived and we're kind of in that state of mind, we do just want those quick, fast foods. So if you try and pad your diet out with as much nutrition as possible, there's going to be less room for those kind of less nutrient dense foods that aren't going to serve you that well in that time. And that's not me saying you can't eat them. Like, you definitely should, but you should also be making sure that you've got a lot of nutrition in your diet at the same time.
100%. I think what's really interesting is during pregnancy, our nutrient requirements go up, particularly the further along we are, but our calorie requirements don't actually go up anywhere near as much as people think. You know, you get all these mums who are a few weeks pregnant and they start saying, oh, I'm eating for 2.
I know.
But really, when we're breastfeeding, we actually need, I think, double the amount of extra calories that we do even in our 3rd trimester. Is that right?
It's quality over, just going back to in pregnancy. Yeah, you shouldn't be eating for 2 in pregnancy, unfortunately, as fun as that would be. It's quality over quantity. Like you just said, it's more the micronutrients that they're actually taking more of. It's not like you eat a pizza and your baby has half the pizza. That's not how it works. So quality over quantity in regards to nutrition. And I think it differs from country to country, but I think in the UK, it's around 300 calories extra in the 3rd trimester, which is basically just like a snack, a decent snack. But postpartum, yes, like I said, you can burn around 500 calories breastfeeding. So you need to be taking that into account. And however your preferred source of fuel, you need to be making sure that you're actually using more calories when you're breastfeeding, because even when you're not breastfeeding, your body is working to produce more milk. So your body's kind of constantly in this mode of using up energy.
So interesting. And I love how knowledgeable and passionate you are about this subject. I can really feel that and hear that in your voice.
I feel like I really want to speak up for mums, because when I became a mum, I was like, I did not know any of this. I'm like, I actually felt like, this is going to sound really dramatic, when I had Romeo, my first, when I walked down the street, I felt like people should be bowing down to me, because I was like, do you know what my body's just done? Like, I'm a freaking superwoman right now. I just like birthed this baby and I went out with him and looking after him.
You are super mum. You are. And also you have the most beautiful children. Both of them are so gorgeous, honestly.
Thank you. I just feel very passionately about giving mums like the credit they deserve.
Absolutely. Now, Sophie, we have a closing tradition on this podcast. So I ask every guest, what does a 360-degree approach to health look like for you? You can answer this in any way you like, maybe one area that doesn't get enough airtime.
Okay, so when I think about that, I literally picture this circle made up of like different practices. And I really feel that like very few of us can give like 100% to nutrition, 100% sleep, 100% exercise. Like you can't, and then manage work and like all these other things that come into play when we talk about life. So I just feel like you should do a good job at eating well, a good job at getting your movement in, a good job at trying to get enough sleep every night. Like just hit like each point with the amount of effort that is doable for you. So one thing I have to do every day, it doesn't matter what night I had, how little sleep I got, I get up and I have a shower and I get myself ready in the morning. I just feel like that's a really powerful thing to do for your mindset. And that's not me judging any mum that's had a terrible night and stays in her pajamas all day. I just feel that that is not going to do you any justice. I always start a new day. I'm like, it's a new day. Like, let's forget about the night before. Let's go into it with as much positivity as we can. So get up and have a shower. Do something that's going to make you feel good. If you can get some movement and fresh air in your lungs, great. Eat at least one well-balanced meal. You don't have to have the perfect diet all day, but I hate this mentality of like, if it gets to lunchtime and you don't feel like you've had a good day eating, so whatever, you'll start again tomorrow. I'm like, no, I'm like, have a healthy, well-balanced dinner. Like that's going to make you feel better. And just talk to a friend. I know it sounds really silly, but you vibe off of the energy of the people that you're surrounding yourself with. So just like have a nice conversation with like your mom or your sister or your friend or your partner or your kids. And that's another thing I've really learned. It's like with my first, I gave my everything to him and I completely depleted myself with everything. Like my mental health was so bad. But I've learned that being selfish is a good thing. And by looking after myself, I'm looking after my kids even better. Like they deserve a better version of me.
I absolutely love
your question.
That. Yes, for sure. That's such a beautiful answer. And especially the last part, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to look after yourself
100%.
first. Like they say on the plane, put your own oxygen mask on first before anyone else. And that way you can give your all to everyone, but fill up your own cup first. I'm also a big believer in that. Thank you so much, Sophie. I'm so delighted to have had you on. You've been such a huge inspiration to me throughout my whole journey, becoming a nutritionist and as a nutritionist. And you're one of my oldest friends in the industry as well. I feel like you were there back in the day. We were going to events with brands together years and years ago before social media took off.
Those are the days.
So Sophie, tell our listeners, where can they find you on social media? How can they work with you?
So my Instagram is Sophie Bertrand _ and then my website is sophiebertrand.com, and all my resources and ways that you can work with me are on there. I think I answer like 99.9% of my DMs. I'm like really, really grateful for the community I have on there. So I'm very conscious that like I always want to reply to people. So literally shoot me a DM and I'll always reply to you.
That's amazing. And Sophie also shares the most unbelievable recipes. So definitely check them out and try making them at home. Lots of yummy treats and healthy snacks and delicious, speedy dinners. So thanks again, Sophie, and I will speak to you soon.
Thanks, Ellie. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Gut 360 podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast or learned something new, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. And make sure you hit follow for weekly episodes every Monday morning. Do share this podcast with anyone who you think it may benefit. And for your chance to win a free online nutrition consultation with me, just take a screenshot of this episode and share it on your Instagram stories, tagging @Eli Brecher Nutrition so I can repost you. See you back here next Monday.